Morning, America and the world. This is your morning damage report as America takes another step down the path towards dictatorship. Now, you might think after watching this video that my intro and the title are a little bit hyperbolic, but I don't believe that they are. And I think in hindsight, this tweet could end up being significant. Not necessarily because the tweet itself does much, but it reveals something about Donald Trump's approach to the presidency and how he will attempt to turn the American public against all of the institutions that can provide checks on his increasingly powerful and executive order-driven presidency. This is the tweet. And by the way, we're coming out of a weekend where he tweeted a number of scary things, and I'll be covering some of them today on The Young Turks, which I believe I'll be hosting the first hour with Anna Kasparian. But this one is the scariest, and the tweet read thusly: just cannot believe a judge would put our country in such peril. If something happens, blame him and court system. People pouring in, bad. And this was back on Sunday. This was yesterday. And so what he is saying there, this is in reference to a federal judge putting a stay nationwide on his Muslim travel ban, or if you're a Trump supporter, his travel ban. It's not totally about Muslims, it just happens to target 7 majority Muslim countries. And so that judge put a stay on it. And so the Department of Homeland Security said that they will be challenging that, but they will respect the stay now. Because they have to, because that's how our country and our Constitution, our legal system actually works. Now, he is trying to make it seem as if this is one person who has decided to stop his travel ban. He says a judge would put our country in such peril. But of course, if you've been following this from the beginning, you know that there were already a number of judges who put state-level or regional stays on the travel ban. And those ones largely, at least initially, the executive branch of the federal government decided not to actually respect. This time they're going to do it. And then an appeals court ruled on what the previous federal judge had already decided and upheld the stay. Now, that doesn't mean that it's gone forever. And it might be that they'll take it up to another level, and eventually maybe it'll get to the Supreme Court, and maybe Neil Gorsuch will be able to finally make the travel ban a thing that goes on forever. But right now it's gone through multiple levels of the federal judiciary. But he says it's one man. Again, you have him attacking a judge. This is something that Donald Trump has done before. But the most important part is not that he's lying to you about the way our judiciary works, as if one judge is himself a dictator and can shut down this whole program, when there instead are multiple levels of review, as we have already seen with the appeals court ruling. He's done this with the media as well, and polls and all that. The scary part is that second sentence. If something happens, blame him and court system. Now, your immediate reaction might be this. This is a ridiculous thing to say that because temporarily additional restrictions on immigration is going to lead to a terrorist attack. When refugees, it's like 3 refugees out of well over 100,000 have been convicted of anything related to terrorism, and none of those acts were acts of terrorism inside of the U.S., he's still assuming, or at least getting you to assume, that refugees are this immediate threat, and that if we let them in, they will immediately attack. And then if that happens, it's the judge who is to blame. Okay? Now, there's a couple of things that he wants to accomplish here. One, he is trying to insulate himself in the near term from any negative blowback from terrorist attacks happening in the U.S. And this is something that he needs to do, because all throughout the primary and the general election, he repeatedly told the American public, I will keep you safe, I will destroy ISIS, and I'm going to do it really fast. They're just going to be gone. Now, of course, that's not true. He's not going to be able to do that, which means that his assurances that he'll protect the American public will not actually work, and there will inevitably be attacks, as there are likely to be for the rest of our life, because terrorism is a nationwide problem that we've largely contributed to. And because of that, he needs to protect himself from his supporters saying, wait, but you said you were going to defend us. Well, now he is trying to defend us, and it's those goddamn federal judges who are going to get you and your families killed. But it serves a second purpose as well. That's the first. The second purpose is that he wants you to question anyone who questions him. Okay, if the media provides a check on Donald Trump by citing, for instance, false information that he's spread, they're fake news and you can't trust them. Don't trust the media. If a judge says what you're doing is unconstitutional and I need to do my duty by stopping it, well then that judge is responsible for acts of terrorism. That judge got American citizens killed. And to any of you other judges out there, don't you dare go against me or anything else my administration does, because I will place on your back the blood of anyone dies from any unrelated act of terrorism here or across the world. And that is an intimidation tactic against the federal judiciary. The federal judiciary, who is there as one of their many roles to provide a check on overarching, expanding executive power. I apologize, I'm a little bit sick coming out of the weekend. It's been raining a lot. We need the media and we need the judiciary to stand up to Donald Trump if the legislature isn't going to be able to do it. And because the Senate and the House are dominated by Republicans, despite the fact that they get fewer votes than Democrats in elections, they're probably not going to do that. So we need the media and we need the judiciary. And here he is, week after week, turning the American public against those two institutions. The two institutions that are going to be fundamental, instrumental in making sure that in 4 or 8 years we even have a democracy anymore. And he is turning the public against them, saying the media's lying to you, they're liars, and federal judges are murderers, killing Americans by letting illegals into the country. This may seem like just a tweet. It may seem like I'm focusing too much on his stuff, and maybe it's a distraction, it's a squirrel thing. This isn't a fucking squirrel. This is a guy trying to make you think that judges are getting you killed if he does his constitutional duty of stopping something he sees to be unconstitutional. And it's not even permanently stopped. It's going to work its way up through the rest of the judiciary, and it's probably going to eventually be allowed. Or they'll change the law to let it be allowed. Or maybe they'll be so against Muslim immigration that they'll do a goddamn amendment to the Constitution. But this should scare anyone who cares about the future of American democracy. A functioning democracy with actual checks and balances. This is a necessary step for any would-be autocrat or dictator across the country. You can look at the case studies. There's a lot going on in the world right now. You demonize the media, you demonize the judiciary. Eventually, maybe you demonize the police force if you have the army beside you and the police are an opposition force. In our case, I don't think that's going to actually happen. But this is the second step of the two that he needs to break the American public's will in institutions designed to protect them from people like Donald Trump. Now, as I said, there were a lot of other scary things happening over this weekend, including in tweet form, and we are going to be focusing on them on today's episode of The Young Turks, which will be happening a little bit later on today. Be sure to tune into that. If you're not already following me on Twitter, it's at John Iadarola. A lot of the things that I get to on Twitter and social media, I don't necessarily have the time to make videos on, so you should follow me on Twitter to see those. If you're not already subscribed, you can, of course, do that as well, and I'll see you guys in the future.